Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 4 of When the Hunt Calls. Now, I was so excited for interviewing, so excited about interviewing this guest that I totally forgot to intro the show, do all that stuff and whatnot, because I was really geeked out, really excited about learning what I wanted to learn about, which was arrows. So if you don't already know by having read the title here, tonight's guest, again, episode 4 of When the Hunt Calls, was Kyle Davidson of DCA Custom Arrows. Now, what Kyle does is literally make custom arrows, but that's his side gig. He's an engineer by day, and customizing or building custom arrows is a passion of his, and it seems to be something he's really good at, because he's gaining a lot of popularity. A lot of people I follow, that follow me and so on, speak very, very highly of him. So without further ado, and this serving as the introduction, welcome to episode 4 of When the Hunt Calls, the guest being Kyle Davidson of DCA Custom Arrows. Hope you guys learn as much as I did, and here's the show.
Hey, what's going on, man?
How you doing, buddy?
All right, and yourself?
Doing good, man.
All right, all right, all right. Nice to actually see a face with the voice I've been hearing, the pictures and everything like that, bro. Pretty cool, pretty cool.
Yeah, for real. It's crazy to see your picture and you not like shooting an arrow or doing push-ups or something.
Cool. You know what? Let's get right into this because as I said earlier, I'm really excited about this. All right. So for everyone watching, you guys can see I disabled the comments for right now, just so that way it's a lot easier to see Kyle. And at about the last maybe 15-20 minutes, I'm gonna turn the commenting feature back on so that way you guys can ask Kyle any questions you guys have. All right. And a little bit of housekeeping notes. If at any point in any way, shape, or form we get disconnected, Kyle, I'm gonna hop right back on. It's yet to happen, but again, with it doing anything live, anything can happen. You know what? If we get disconnected in any way, shape, or form, I'll just hop right back on the Instagram live, and then and you can just send the request again, and we'll pick up where we left off. Cool.
Sounds good, man.
All right, good to go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this evening's episode of When the Hunt Calls. My name is Cliff Cadet, also known as at Urban Archery NYC, right here on the lovely Instagram. And the handsome gentleman you see right below me is none other than Kyle Davidson of DCA Custom Arrows. Did I get that right?
There you go. Yeah.
All right, perfect. Yes. Way to plug the logo and the merch.
Got it right.
All right, so if you guys have been living under a rock, I don't mean to offend anyone if you do live under a rock. Kyle is a gentleman who basically customizes arrows. He builds arrows for people. I first came across Kyle on the Western Contours podcast, and I can't front, Kyle, I was intrigued. All right.
Thank you.
One of the biggest things for me is archery for me has been something I want to take up since a kid. You know what I'm saying? It was a childhood fantasy for me. I didn't purchase a bow until about 2 years ago. I'm probably coming up on my 2-year anniversary now. But I didn't really consistently start shooting till December of last year, where I purchased my own target, was shooting in my mother-in-law's driveway, things like that. And then earlier this year, I made the conscious decision that I want to go hunt this fall, go on my first deer hunt.
Yep.
But what fascinates me about archery is the whole science of it also. I'm a bit of a science geek myself. And when I heard you talking on the Western Contours podcast, a lot of the terminology was a little bit over my head, so I had to, get into it a little bit deeper. Some of it I didn't get a chance to, so I'm going to ask you questions tonight.
Sure.
As they to talk to me as if I'm starting from ground zero, which to a certain extent I am.
Yeah.
But
if you're not, then there's somebody else that is. So
exactly,
it's good to back it up a notch.
Exactly, which is why, why I'm doing When the Hunt Calls. It's an opportunity not only for me to learn, but while I'm learning, everybody else gets to watch, you know, what I'm learning about with hopes that they're gonna be able to pick up the same. All right.
Sure.
So tell us about yourself, because I know aside from building the custom arrows, you have a day job, correct?
Yes, yes, I do. Very much so, and that's part of the reason that I'm a little slow to get back to people sometimes is because of the day job. I'm also dad of two little boys, so I try
Nice.
to make some time for them, watch a little Scooby-Doo, um, all the stuff that's you can't get back. So I try to make time for that as much as I can. But I am a mechanical engineer. I spent my whole career, not only my professional engineering career, but also even before that, I started racing go-karts with my dad. And
Oh,
my dad was a tool and die maker. He's retired since then, but he was a tool and die maker, and so I would design something for the go-kart, and he would take it into work and either make it himself or have one of his friends make it. And they loved
okay.
doing it because it was more interesting in their job. But it was my first experience in kind of designing something, and then not only that, but I was the one that was driving. So if it didn't if it didn't work, it was on me.
All right.
Literally, I could have gotten hurt by it. So
All
it was
right.
a good introduction, though. I got a lot of experience from him doing that,
Hmm.
and then went to Purdue, as you can see.
Nice.
Went to Purdue, graduated, and then now I am a mechanical engineer. Like I said, I spent my entire career in R&D. So when people at my day job come in, they'll either have an idea, which is, just we want something that kind of does this, or they'll
Hmm.
have just a sketch of it and then be like, we want something that kind of does that. And
Oh,
it's,
wow.
yeah, and so it's up to me and the guys on my team. We all kind of run our own projects.
Hmm.
We have a lot of help with it. Mechanical, we have a lot of electrical engineers that help out with it as well. Um, and we take it from pencil sketch to, working with SLAs to or rapid prototypes to getting prototype parts made, getting parts machined, and then trying it out. And it goes from, nothing to something, including electronics and all that kind of stuff. So it is something where you have to dive into a topic if you're not familiar with it, learn as much as you can, and
Hmm.
then almost try to become an expert in it because you're making a product that you're going to be selling. Um, it's really weird to talk around what I do and not, not mention it, but yeah. So that's what I've been doing, and just because of my background like that, it pays to be as organized as you can, as
I
detailed as you
imagine.
can.
I can only
Um,
imagine.
Managing the variables is a huge thing.
Hmm.
So that kind of ties into the whole archery thing where as I go out, I'm trying to learn, I'm tuning arrows, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I try to minimize the variables. And the other thing is, when I go in and I present something at work, I can't just tell them that I hope it works and I think it'll work. I have to have
Mm.
data. I have to have numbers. I have to have data. I have to have quantitative results to be able to back that up. All I do is present data. I don't present my hopes and dreams. It's numbers. Will it hold together? Yes, it will. Will it hold the weight? Yes, it will. And these are all the numbers and these are all the graphs. So um, that really came into play when I kind of got into archery. Um, I started doing it on my own just because that's the way I think,
Hmm.
and it kind of took off from there. So I don't know if you want to get into the whole how I began or if you want me to follow up.
Well, yeah. Well, let me ask you a question. Have you always been into archery, or is it like not even the arrow building just yet, just the archery? Have you always been into archery, or is it just something you picked up over, course of the years as you gotten older?
Yeah, actually, it's definitely something I picked up. So my only experience with archery was, like in middle school with everybody else, we shot bows in gym class, and it was not a
Mm.
good experience. The nocks didn't hold on. They'd fall off the rest. You draw back, and the arrows would be flying all over the place, and it was horrible. I hated it. I also did it at I think I did it at a Boy Scout camp, and I enjoyed it. I like doing it. I like shooting the BB guns as well. Both my parents, really no one in my family is an outdoors person at all, so I didn't have any experience with any of this growing up. And then later in life, after college, I got shot a few rifles, shot a few pistols,
Mm-hmm.
started modifying those out. And then one of the guys that I worked with at the time, TJ Eads, who actually owns Rack Hub now, if you've heard of
Rack
that.
Hub. Sounds
It's a
familiar.
pretty cool, yeah, it's
Right.
like an antler mounting system. You can put it on, you can adjust where you want it, and then get them looking right.
Okay.
But the best thing is you could take them back off again, and you could show them your buddies, and you can tell the story of it.
Cool.
So
All right.
yeah, so anyway, he got me into it. We were working on a project together, a really cool project together, and we worked a lot and really close. And he was like, "Man, you should." I was always talking about guns because he's a big hunter. And he
Mm-hmm.
was like, "You should get into bows," because I was tuning everything. I was, modifying the triggers and building my own AR and all that kind of stuff.
Oh
And
wow. Okay.
yeah, he was like, "You should." Archery has some variables to it. You would enjoy it. So he let me borrow one of his bows, and it was just, here's the crack pipe, and I was hooked, man. I was hooked bad. So
All
I
right.
ended up buying that bow off of him, and then the string was frayed a little bit, and after being into archery for just a little while, I replaced the string on it myself, and then
Nice.
told him about it, and he was like, "You're crazy, dude." So yeah, it kind of took off from there.
All right. Now, what? All right. So I understand the engineering background, which is awesome. And then getting hooked on archery. What sparked, like, what made you realize one day, hey, I'm gonna start building my own arrows? I mean, I know there's guys who do it, but what sparked that interest for you, the arrow building part?
Yes. So when I got that bow from him, he didn't have any arrows offhand that I could borrow. I mean, he let me borrow a couple, and I went and shot him for a little bit. And he was like, "Hey, man, I need this for hunting." So uh, I ended up going to my local range, and they were like, "Here's a bunch of arrows, 30 to 60 pounds. These are good for you. Go shoot."
Mm,
And so I went out and I was shooting and learning and not shooting great, but I was kind of thinking, you know, this is what archery is. It's just not as accurate as shooting a rifle or pistol or anything.
mm-hmm.
Then started, my form started getting better, my release started getting better. I was holding a lot steadier,
All right.
and I wasn't hitting the target. And I was like, well, I was hitting the target, but I wasn't hitting my smaller parts of the target that I wanted to, bullseyes.
Got it.
Um, and then I started kind of watching a few videos and doing some more research, and people
Mm-hmm.
were just lighting up the X's, and I couldn't figure out why I couldn't. And then
Mm-hmm.
I started listening to podcasts. I listened to Knock On Podcast was huge. Dudley's the man.
Yeah.
He not only has the experience, but he also has the technical experience, not only just the
Yep.
archer experience.
Yeah.
So listen to a lot of those. Listen to all kinds of podcasts, all kinds of research, and like I said, part of my day job is doing stuff like that. So I'm used to finding research, getting the data,
Mm-hmm.
drowning out the noise, because there's a ton of it. Archery Talk's a horrible, horrible place. But yeah, if you want really bad information or just get really confused, you can go to Archery Talk and
Dude,
find something new.
you're preaching to the choir here because that was one of the first places I looked to for information when I
Yeah,
getting into archery and then deciding I wanted to hunt, and I got lost and so turned around that I didn't even go to that forum at all anymore.
yeah, it's not somewhere you want to go when you're new, and everybody does. I mean,
Mm,
there's some really good people on there for sure, but
mm,
there's a lot of confusion out there. So I started digging into it, and then started figuring out, well, I could start documenting kind of what I was doing. I knew that there was a spine to an arrow. I knew that it was the flexibility of the arrow. I
mm,
found out how to manipulate the spine of an arrow with a consistent consistent length already,
mm,
and then I kind of just started tuning and playing with that, and then started shooting better and better and better. And then I was like, oh, this is the steps to get to, this part equals that, and that equals that, and that equals that. And so
mm.
started messing around with it, and then started shooting a lot better. And
All
that's when
right.
I kind of figured out, okay, this is for me. I wasn't building them for anybody else other than myself. It was more just learning how to do something first.
All right. Now, what I guess what got you as you started building for yourself? How did I guess snowball into I guess this business that you have now in terms of,
Yeah,
building arrows for everyone else? Because I know you're
sure.
busy, brother. Because a lot of people I follow, I
Yeah,
know have gone to you like the hunting student. Brandon with that
Yep.
awesome grizz on his logo,
Oh yeah.
Apex Predator,
Yeah.
and I think even Guy from what I believe his name is Guy from Western Contours,
Yeah.
hooked up with you as well. So
Yeah.
how to go from you, yeah,
Guys, wrapped right there.
there you go. So
Yeah. So those.
how to go from, building arrows for yourself to now, building arrows for a hell of a lot of other people.
Yeah. So uh, that's kind of a funny story because I started doing it for myself and documenting everything. Like I said, creating my
Mm,
own spreadsheets and figuring out some formulas and ways to, like I said, keep things organized, minimize the variables, and find good things that influence the flight of the arrow. And then I think TJ again, the same guy from Rack Hub, I think he lured me into this sport to get me to build arrows for him because I started building arrows and I started telling him I was like, hey, you know what I did? I went there and I did this and I did this and I did this and he was like, I don't have any idea what you're talking about, dude. And then we went and shot and I was shooting really well from what I was doing. I was really, really, really good now and not great, but from what I was, it's relative. And he was like, hey man, if you build me a set of arrows. So
mm,
um, I ended up building him a set of arrows and then um, a guy at the range that I was shooting with was shooting. Man, this I hate telling the story, but I always do. A guy that I was shooting with, you shoot and then everything's clear. You walk out to the target, pull your arrows. This guy was shooting. He was shooting at 20 yards, and he had a 2 foot diameter kind of spread with his arrows. And I was shooting
dang.
at 40
Okay.
yards, and I kind of had that going. And we walk out, and this is before I started. He was like, oh man, I can't get this bow to shoot. I can't get these arrows to shoot. And I was like, oh, what? As we were pulling arrows, I said, well, what arrows are you shooting? He said, I don't know, but they're 500, 500 grains. And it was a 500 spine arrow. And the dude I'm 6'2" and skinny, but
Mm,
he was like 6'4" and much bigger than I was. And when he would draw back, he was drawing back with some force. So he was shooting a 500 spine arrow with a 31-inch draw length and pulling 70 pounds. And for anybody that doesn't know, that's dangerous. So I told him, stop shooting those and shoot mine. Mine are at the time they were 340 spine.
mm,
Shoot these and see how they do. So he shot those. The groups went from like 2 feet down to like a foot, and he was
wow.
like, "Build me some arrows." And I didn't at the time. I told him, I said, "Just get some 300 spine arrows and cut them as short as you're comfortable with, and then move on." And then I was having the same conversation with TJ, and he was like, "You should do this as like a side job." And I was like, "No, what I do isn't unique." I didn't think, I was like, I
Mm,
just kind of knock around and do this thing. And he said, "Well, where would you go buy arrows from?" I'll never forget him standing in my office, like at the door, and he said, "Where would you buy arrows from?" And I thought for a minute, and then he just looked at me, and he's like the nicest guy in the world. And he just looked at me and he goes, "Do it. Start your own company and do it." And
there you go.
I
There
was
you
like,
go.
I'll build maybe 5 sets in
Uh-huh.
2019,
Hmm.
and uh, I was hoping for 5 sets that I would do this year,
Hmm.
and now I've surpassed 65 in
Nice.
seven and a half months or 6.5
Wow.
months.
All right. That's really good. Dang. All right.
Yeah.
So now what I want to do real quick is I with the comments turned off, I don't know with my viewers if it's like fairly new hunters, if it's hunters
Yep.
that just, purchase their own arrows. If anyone's watching, I'll tell you my personal story. The first set, the
Yeah.
first dozen arrows I purchased were $20 at a big box store.
Yeah.
Um
Yep.
I believe a 340 spine. Um,
Yep.
and I'm gonna have to in just like 30 seconds to a minute ask you exactly what that means. Um, and what do you call it? And the guy in the big box store just took my measurement. It wasn't until maybe a few weeks ago that I actually figured out how to figure out my draw length.
Yeah.
Because prior to that, the kid just took my measurement in the store and then cut the arrows down to size. So let's jump into arrows 101, right? And let's talk about real quick, if you don't mind, the anatomy of an arrow, because there's still parts that I don't know what is what. All right.
Yeah.
So I've got in my hand, I've got an Eastern Archery FMJ. All right.
Okay.
All
Yeah.
right. So I know what the knock is. All right. I know that. I know
Yeah.
what the fletching is. All right.
Yep.
Now, what is the vein and what is the spine?
So the spine is like on the arrow, it's actually marked. I grabbed an Easton Axis. It's terrible. Here we go. So this is a Pierce Platinum, and it's
Okay.
marked on there 340. If you guys can see that, it might be flipped, but it says right there that's a 340. And what
Okay.
that's saying is that's how stiff the arrow is.
340.
So
Now,
yeah,
what's the measurement exactly? 340 what? Do you know?
yes, it's inches. I'll actually show you.
Oh,
We'll go
okay.
live here. I was actually. I'll try to do it quick.
No, no problem.
See if we can do this. I was thinking about doing this, and I was like, this might be too much. So can you see that's zeroed out there?
Yeah, I see that.
All right, and so what I have is a pivot point or a fixed point here,
Mm-hmm.
and then a fixed point here,
All
and
right.
then this is the length of the arrow. These are 28 inches apart. And so right now that's reading 0, and this is a 340 spine arrow.
Okay.
So I'll set that like that real quick, and then what I have here, this is a spine gauge that I made myself. It's not 100% scientific, but it's close. So
All
this
right.
is a 2-pound weight, and then with this weight, I can hook it onto there, and then when I add that weight to it, you can see that's
It's in reverse, but I get it. I see 342.
yeah 342. So that's what the spine is. Uh,
Ah, okay.
yeah. So
Nice. All right. I understand now. Trust me, a light bulb, like the heavens just parted right now, and I can hear angels going, ah. I get it. All right. So
yeah, so
that's what,
that's the spine. That's if you hold the arrow out 28 inches apart, you put a 2-pound weight on it, and it deflects. That's how much it's going to deflect. So that's actually a measurement. So this is a 340 spine, and this axis is a 300. And so,
okay.
when it's 28 inches apart, you put that weight on it, it's going to deflect 0.300 in that case. So a 500 spine would
Would
actually
be a
deflect
point.
a half inch in that case. Yeah.
Wow.
So,
That is awesome to know.
yeah.
Very awesome to know because that I understand. So thank you for that. So now the next number I want to inquire about. All right. So on my FMJ, right, it says that it's a 5 millimeter. All right.
Yeah.
So now that, from what I understand, is the diameter of the arrow, correct?
Yes. So,
Okay.
yeah, this is an axis. It's also a 5 millimeter. Again, it's
Okay.
backwards. I apologize, but it's a 0.204 on the ID. ID
Okay.
being the inner diameter.
Okay.
So, like um, an axis that's 5 millimeter with a 204 diameter ID
Mm.
is the same as a rampage. So it has the same ID. This one just has a tip on the end of it, but.
Okay. Now that diameter, that's from the center of the arrow to the outermost part of the arrow, or the innermost part of the arrow. Like
Uh, that's a good question. I honestly don't know. I could find out real quick
because
though.
yeah, because I'm only curious because I know brass, like, or they're in the not always brass, but there are inserts that go within the arrow. So is that diameter
Yes.
minus the insert? So is that measurement from like the center of the arrow to the outermost part or the innermost part?
Yeah. Just a second here.
I
Um,
asked a cool question. Yes.
yeah. So the 204 is the ID. So it's 5 millimeters on the ID.
Okay, cool. Good to know. And the vein is what exactly?
The vein is actually the part. Well, some Max Hunters here. So the vein is actually that is a vein
Oh,
or a
okay.
fletching or whatever. Yeah.
All right.
And
Now, now
fletching as I used to joke around.
after that there is the arrowhead, and now the other parts that I right now can't see, and I also the followers can't see right
Mhm.
now, that would be inside the arrow, are the inserts, correct?
Yeah. So I have see what I can get here quick. So yeah, the inserts on a Black Eagle. I build a lot of rampages and axis, and so like this is the there it is. This is the Black Eagle Rampage, and what you're looking at there is the insert. This is kind of an insert outsert, and what is actually in there is this. Get my fingers.
All right, yeah, I see.
That.
Okay.
So you see the part that's actually sticking out there.
So,
and then, go ahead.
no, so with something like that, is there a benefit to having that kind of insert outsert where part of it is within the arrow and the other part out of it? Does it distribute the weight of the the insert a lot better, or?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I'm actually getting ready to do that. So in a couple weeks, like I said, I build a lot of the axis and the rampage. One more, like on yours, is the hit insert, and that's actually the aluminum version of it. And you can't see it, like, so when you see one that's like this, it has nothing inside of it. And the hit insert actually goes inside of it, and so that'll slide all the way up inside of it. And then you can put your field point, thread that into that, so it's actually hidden inside of it.
Oh, okay.
It would be like that in it. So there's a lot of, the reason I love like this 204 or 5mm ID shaft is because of all the components available for it. So like you have, the Rampage insert outsert, which I think is awesome. The hit insert, this is the aluminum version. They have a brass version as well. And then Iron Will, Bill from Iron Will just came out with his insert, so it's the same thing, but instead of being aluminum, it's actually steel. It's like a 25 grain, which is that big, and then they have bigger versions of it.
Okay. Is there a benefit to the different material that the inserts are made out of?
Yes. So like this one, when your arrowhead or your broadhead penetrates something, it pushes that back into it. And with this one, you're going to be, those threads are supported with aluminum, with bills are supported by a really strong A2 steel, and then with the Black Eagle, it's also, there it is, it's stainless steel. So having something that the threads can push into is really good. On the axis, though, there it is. On the axis, your broadhead or your field point will actually set up against the end of the carbon here. And like I said, in a couple weeks, I have a horrible YouTube channel, but hopefully it'll be a little better soon. It's all data, but I'm going to actually shoot these two, and I'm going to shoot Bill's or the Iron Will hit insert, steel hit insert with the Iron Will impact collar around the outside of it. And honestly, I think that it's the most expensive, but it's also, I think, that the most rigid, completely 100% bulletproof system out there. But we'll see. I mean, Bill's a good friend of mine. I kind of unofficially resell some of his products just because he is a solid engineer and I am too, and we just have a lot of good engineering nerd talks. And so I'm going to find out. I'm going to shoot it through probably Poplar. I'm just looking for something that's dense and I can get good consistent results through. So I will find out. But in my opinion, it would be Bill's Iron Will insert outsert would be number one. I would say that this is number two. I'm guessing now. And the other cool thing is, like I said, this is an Axis, which is a 204 ID, and the Black Eagle insert works in it too. And I've actually built, tons of them like that. So it's a Black Eagle insert and a Easton Axis shaft. So it's a good system, but I'll find out which one's the best.
All right. Do you do a lot of mix and match with parts like that? Like you're saying, because you have the Axis shaft and then a different insert than what probably comes with the shaft. So
yeah,
all right.
I do quite a bit. So I've built. Victory has the shock insert, which is I don't have any on me right now, but it's a really good system. It's expensive. It's a little hard to find too. The good thing is, like, a Black Eagle Rampage is a light shaft compared to an Axis. It's a lot lighter, And
Mm-hmm.
so depending on what I need in the front, because the heavier weight you put in the front, the more it uh, weakens that spine. Um, so in just a second, I'll explain that a little better. But
No
so
problem.
I've used like the aluminum inserts for a Black Eagle arrow, and
Mm-hmm.
actually I'm getting ready to do that right now. I just took an order from a guy today that I'm going to be doing the same thing for. So yeah, I
All
mix
right.
and match components quite a bit.
All right, cool. Now, I guess before I get into something that's like it seems that not necessarily controversy, but some guys kind of go back and forth on, which is FOC, front of center, right?
Yep.
Is that guys have been discussing it, saying it doesn't matter, things like that. But before I even go into, you know what? Let's go into that. What exactly, if you could explain to me and the followers watching, what exactly is FOC?
Sorry, you locked up there, but I'm guessing you said what is front of
What is
center?
Yeah, what is front and center? What exactly is that?
Sure. So these are actually Jonathan Metcalf of Kong Valley. These are going to be,
J
um,
Met. All right.
yeah, this is Jay Met's arrow. He couldn't shoot them anymore, so he sent them to Guy via me, so I could put these. So these rafts will be on there, and I'll get them out to Guy. I promise they're coming, man. Um, so front of center is basically the center point of the arrow, or the center of gravity of the arrow, relative to the center point of the arrow.
Mm-hmm.
So what front of center is basically how far forward the center of gravity is of an arrow. And most people that are unfamiliar with archery or building arrows are really surprised to find out how far back the center of gravity is on something. This doesn't have
Mm-hmm.
a field point or anything in it, but it's really close towards the center. So the front of center is just how far forward it is of the center, the actual center of the arrow. How
Okay.
far forward the center of gravity is of the actual center of the arrow.
And what is it exactly that some hunters or archers are debating in regards to front and center, like whether or not they want to put added weight towards the front end of the arrow, or is that what the discussion is?
Yeah, so the big thing right now is to create an arrow that has a really, really high front of center. Um,
Okay.
Dr. Ashby put out a paper a while ago that um, I don't really buy into all of it. I think he had some good ideas, but I think he might have went a little too far. But
Mm.
trad arrows and compound arrows are very different. So everything that I talk about are compounds.
Okay.
But what everybody's trying to do is create a very high front of center, and what I consider like an extreme front of center is anything over 18%. And so
Okay.
when I build an arrow, for instance, I try to keep it between 10 and 18%. That's just where you get a lot of good flight characteristics with everything. Some of the benefits that you get are it flies better in the wind, you get a little better penetration through
Mm.
brush, things like that. It's it's mainly just there's better flight characteristics with it between those two ranges.
Mm.
Anything over 18%, and my theory with trying to keep it under 18% is because the main thing I look at is the spine. Sorry, and getting the dynamic spine correct. So we
Mm.
talked about the spine and how it bends and what
Yeah.
that number means. And so when somebody contacts me, I ask them for their bow IBO, their draw length, their draw weight, and then I create an arrow that spines out correctly, and I'll kind of save that discussion. But I find something that spines out correctly, and the more weight that you add to the front of an arrow, the more you break down the spine of the arrow, or the weaker you make the arrow. And
Oh,
my
wow.
my
Okay.
yeah, so my big explanation of that I've told before, but it's like if you take a pool noodle that kids use, and you try to push a bowling ball with it, it's going to bend over and fall on itself. If you try to
Mm.
push a baseball with it, it'll do it just fine. And it's the same thing with an arrow. So when you have a lot of weight up in front and you fire that arrow off, it has to push that. That's like the noodle. It's pushing all that weight and it causes it to flex more. So the more weight you have up front, the weaker you make your arrow. And
Got
if you
it.
try to go for the high FOC, in order to do that, you have to have really stiff spine in most cases. And that's when your spine gets out of whack a little bit. And so
Mm.
that's why I keep everybody under 18%.
Nice. I gotta tell you, like you pretty much said the same thing on the podcast, on the Western Contours podcast.
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
seeing it, like seeing you demonstrate, like I get
Yeah.
it. I totally get it now, and I have a really solid understanding. I'm not an expert like you, but I've got a pretty decent understanding now. So thank you for that.
Good.
Um,
Yeah. No, it's
you
I always
now.
talk with my hands even when I'm on podcasts, and so it's like now I can actually do it. But
So you touched on it briefly. So this is gonna be my final question before I turn the comments back on and let the followers ask you questions.
cool.
Um so what information do you need from a potential customer in order, because it not everyone's the same, whether it's the bow
Yes.
they're shooting the pounds, the draw weight, anything like that. So what information do you need from, a customer in order for you to build, their perfect arrow?
Yeah. So what I have them do is they go to my website, dcacustomarrows.com. There's a contact page in there, and in that contact page, it has everything listed that I'm looking for. And
All right.
I hate being that impersonal with it, but
Mm.
it's a good way because like if I'm asking all these questions and people are running around and they're like, if I'm talking to them on the phone, I'm like, "What's your bow poundage? What's your draw weight?" And they're like, "I don't remember. I don't know." It's a way
Mm.
for them to kind of have a checklist, and then they can just at their leisure they can go down through it and get it done and check it in.
Ah, all right.
So I get their bow IBO, or actually they just send me their make and model of the bow, and I get the IBO. Um,
All right.
what IBO is the speed of your bow, but again, all you have to do is just tell me the make and model, and I'll be able to look up what the IBO is.
Okay.
The other reason I need the model is because of the brace height that affects. It's kind of relative to your draw length as well. So if you have a 6-inch
Okay.
brace height, it'll break down the spine more. It'll make your arrow weaker as opposed to a 7 or 8. So I
Okay.
get all that information from them. The quick answer is the bow IBO or the bow make and model, their draw length, their draw weight, and that's where I start. And then after that, I start talking to them a little bit more about what you're going to be doing with it. So I just talked to a guy today, actually a sheriff, and
Mm.
he didn't pull me over, as he actually just called me. Um, but he was he really wants to shoot a very fast arrow, and he wants to shoot it for 3D. So if you're shooting for 3D, we can go lightning fast on the arrow. You want something that's not going to drop much. You're not worried about penetration. You're not worried about momentum. You're not worried about any of that kind of stuff. So that's, somebody could submit a bow IBO, a draw length, draw weight, and then they could say, I could look something up, and then it's like, are you using it for hunting? What are you hunting? Are you shooting 3D? So if you're shooting like a whitetail here in Indiana, we're not going to shoot over 50 yards. But if you're going out west and you're going to be hunting an elk, then you need a little bit more speed because you're going to be shooting longer. And I try to keep
All right.
everybody at least over 270 feet per second, no matter what. And then, like I said, if you're going out west hunting, I try to get it up a little higher than that, kind of depending on the situation and the person.
How many feet
Um,
did you say? What speed you try to get everyone at?
at least to 270.
All right. Nice. All right.
And I try to keep them under 300. The guy today wants to go over that, but 300 is kind of that 18% FOC too. What I'm trying to
Mm-hmm.
build is a good predictable arrow.
Mm-hmm.
We'll build arrows. Garrett from On Point and Garrett, both Garretts, the DIY sportsmen, they can build some crazy arrows, but they're building them for themselves. And what I'm building is for the mass crowd. So I try to keep things as predictable as I can and consistent as I can. So I bow IBO, draw length, draw weight, and then from there we have a conversation, kind of figure out what's next.
All right. Well, all right. I know I said that was the last question. I do have one more, because
No
it came
problem.
up. Because all right. So me personally, I've yet to hunt. I had posed earlier today. I do this thing called Tuesday Topic. So every Tuesday, I put a topic out there and have people comment. So today's topic was broadheads. So I've
Yeah.
yet to figure out what broadheads I'm going to use. So I've yet to shoot any broadheads. If I were to come to you, requesting an order of arrows that I want to hunt with, and I've yet to figure out what broadheads I'm shooting, um, would it be easier for you to just throw a field point on there and just tell me, hey, just throw on a broadhead that's gonna, if it's 100 grain field point that you put on my arrows, just put 100 grain broadhead on it? Like, is it easily interchangeable, or is it, or do you customize these arrows based on whether or not they will have a field point on it or they'll have broadheads on
Yes and no. So basically, when I sell a dozen arrows to somebody, I ask them if they want a bear shaft with it, and what that is,
it?
like this JMET's arrow has the veins on it, and what
Okay.
a bear shaft is one without the veins on it. What that
Okay.
does is when you shoot, the arrow is going to come out, and if your arrow is off to we'll say your right, if it's
Okay.
flying like this out of your bow, with the veins on it, as it flies, as soon as it leaves your bow or shortly after, it'll straighten up because of the veins correcting for it. When you have a
Okay.
bear shaft and you shoot it, it just flies like that all the time. And so
Mm.
you'll have a situation where the bear shaft will be at a different angle than the broad or than your field point. So one will be perpendicular to your target, and the other one will be the nocks are usually there. The nocks are usually close, but the points
Okay.
are at an angle like that.
All
And
right.
so I'll ask somebody, is it a new bow, or are you not going to be, do you want a bear shaft tune with it? And then
Mm.
they're like, well, I don't know how, and I say just shoot both of them at 20 yards, send me a picture, and I'll tell you what to change. It's
Mm.
usually a really, really easy move. You just move your rest up or down, left or right. Like the thickness of a dime is what I always tell people, because that's about as far as you need to move it. I mean, it's micro tiny adjustments on it, and you'll hit fine. The
All
reason I
right.
went into that is because of the field point and broadhead. So I've shot like the iron wheels. I've shot out to 100 yards.
Mm-hmm.
I've shot the slick trick, viper tricks out to 100 yards. The Exodus I shot out to 65, and then it started raining, so I kind of had to run in. But if you can get your bear shaft hitting the same spot as your fletched arrow,
Mm-hmm.
then your broadhead and your field point will be hitting the same spot, assuming that your broadhead's not like a airplane or something like that. But other than if it's a small broadhead and you have enough veins on your arrow to be able to correct for it,
Mm-hmm.
then everything should be fine. So yeah, I just tell them it's a 100 grain tip or 125, and usually people tell me, I have 600 grain broadheads. I kind of want to stay with those, and so we'll figure some ways to get around that so they can keep shooting the broadheads that they have.
All right. So 100 grain, 100 grain field tips or 125 grain broadheads.
No, it's 100 and 100,
Oh,
the
100
same
and
rule.
100. Sorry, sorry.
Yeah.
All right. Got it, got it. All right. Well, enough from me. All right. Let me enable the comments here. All right. If anybody is on now, anyone watching now, sorry, and wants to ask any questions, feel free to do so. I don't know who is on right now.
We
Oh,
got some.
Marquise. Marquise is from
Yeah.
Florida. What's up, brother? FOB Archery, some great dudes. If any of you guys that are watching right now have any questions for Kyle, feel free to ask right now. This is where the Jeopardy music would normally come in, while we're waiting.
That's all right.
All right. So Marquise asks, what does the average set cost? If you're
Yeah.
comfortable, discussing price.
Sure. Yeah. So basically, when they get an arrow from me, um, I go through and I figure out everything that I talked about plus more. So I figure out exactly how long or what spine, excuse me, what the spine needs to be, how long the arrow needs to be, what weight needs to go up front, what components need to go up front, all that stuff. Hold on. And get that all dialed in. I square the arrow, so I square it based on the whole length of the arrow, and then sorry, getting over a cold.
That's all right.
So I figure out all the tuning, square the ends, and then I also do custom wraps. So here's these are actually mine. I finally did
All right.
some for myself. I had just some white wraps, and I was like, man, I need to get some decent ones for myself. So I had those made, and then these I thought were pretty cool too. So those are like a little
I see
P51
it.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know,
Got it.
the tigers.
Yeah.
My grandpa was big into that. So I do all that. I also spine align the arrows and then align the wraps to the spine. So there's a little mark there.
Hmm.
I align that to the spine of the arrow and then build them all out. And there's a lot of little tricks that I do that are boring and nobody wants to hear about, but it makes a better arrow. I sand out the inside of them, so I have a little tool here. I talked about on Western Contours, but there's my little tool to sand
Got
out the
it.
inside of them,
Got it.
so the inserts hold just a little better. Long story, but roughly for all of that with the wrap, they're roughly $20, and that depends on which shaft we start with. So that's kind of where it's at right now. It's a little bit more than that, but that's baseline.
All right, cool. I don't know if you saw, but Baby George Outdoors, I guess maybe he put in an order with you because he's commanded you to get off of Instagram and build his arrows.
I hear you, Robert. I'm on it, man. I got him.
That's
Yeah, man.
awesome.
Robert. I got your wraps ordered. They look awesome. They're gonna be cool.
Dude, it
There
seems like
you
you're changing people's lives out there, man.
go.
Like, let's see. Someone at addicted underscore outdoorsman asked, do you spine your arrows to get wobble out? I don't know what any of that means.
Sure. Yeah. What you do when somebody does or finds the spine of the arrow, like I said, I spine my arrows,
Mm,
and there's all kinds of ways that people do that. I haven't seen anybody do it the way that I do it, and that's kind of one of my little secrets that I try to keep. But basically, it's how the arrow comes out. So when you load the end of it, it's going to
okay.
deflect one way or another.
Okay.
And if you can figure out a way to spine them, they'll all leave the bow at the same time, and that makes for a super consistent set of arrows.
All right. Nice. Oh, he said he didn't mean spine, he meant spin.
Oh, yeah.
Do you spin out the arrows?
Yeah, so what I do, what spinning the arrows is, this is actually an arrow I shot in half at my parents' house, but I keep it so it keeps arrows from coming off my table. But this is
Ah,
actually just a little arrow spinner, and you spin
okay.
them to make sure that the point isn't wobbling. So because
Ah, okay.
and I check them, I kind of spot check them because the way that I cut them using the whole length of the arrow, they're really,
Mhm.
really good as far as the spinning of them.
All right. So one of my boys out here from actually New York,
Mhm.
Alex, aka 0 feet per second, he's asked what's been the craziest request that you've received for arrow build?
uh,
Like anything crazy. Like for the most part, I would assume that people trust your judgment and they say, hey, this is what I'm shooting, so on. Build me some arrows. Do you get someone that's like, I gotta have this, and this?
oh yeah, yeah, I definitely do. I had a guy that super nice guy, but I get some guys that are they've been shooting a long time. They know exactly what they want. They just want somebody to put it together and put it together in a very good way and
Mm,
do the spine alignment, do that kind of stuff. But they know exactly. And I had a guy, like I said, he's a super nice guy, and it was a very fun build. It's on my Instagram.
mm,
The ones that had the Q2I veins on them, he knew exactly what he wanted, head to tail on the arrow, and it was a cool build. I got to use a new vein and use some new components, so
mm,
uh, that's about it. I've had some crazy ideas. My
mm.
670 grain arrow that I built
Wow.
was pretty big, and it spined out perfect. It was just a monster. 670 grains, and then it was, as you can tell, I'm looking it up right now, like 16% front of center. It was enormous, but it flies great. I'm blanking on the guy's name. I really want to give him some credit for it, but yeah, it was yeah, Patrick Tobridge. I think he's actually on right now.
All
So
right.
if you're on, Patrick, I hope those are still shooting well. But yeah, it was a 670 grain arrow, 16% front of center, and it was flying 280 feet per second.
Nice.
And he called and he was like, you know, I have a huge draw length, 32-inch draw length, 78 pounds. So that was a
30,
200,
32
yeah,
inch draw. Wow. Okay. I'm
32-inch draw length,
I'm 29 and a
70
half.
pounds.
So,
Yeah, I too.
all right.
Uh, yeah, so that I've had more crazy ideas than my customers have, but it's always been fun. I mean, I get to deal with some really, really cool people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's just great times to talk to some of them. Captain Bill, is a charter boat captain up in Rhode Island.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's really fun to do. The tack outdoor guys are really cool. Yeah, it's just he's hilarious. Sorry, do we have more questions? But he's a oil
Sorry, go
rig
ahead.
manager, and he's just crazy. It's Dexter's his name, but he's a good dude. Check him out on
Uh,
Instagram.
your guy Patro, you said? He said
Yeah.
he almost took a really nice I don't know if I ever said it right, mule deer with him today with the arrows he
Oh,
built him.
good.
He
Yeah.
said almost, almost.
Man, I'm surprised the deer didn't just die when he drew back. I would.
Another question we had is what do you call it? Let's see. Oh, another one, a really good guy here on Instagram, Bjorn Imperfect Human. He asked, "What are some things that seem to be a fad that you try to steer customers away from?"
Yeah, I would say FOC is a big one right now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's a fad. I think it's always been around, but
Mm-hmm.
it's something people either believe diehard in it or not. People get them to fly really well. I'm not an expert in it, but like I said, I build a predictable arrow. The other
Mm-hmm.
thing are vanes. People, you know, a new vane comes out and everybody jumps on board, or you know, they try something different, which is really good. It's always good to keep trying different things, but
Mm-hmm.
um, blazers are awesome vanes. The only thing that I don't like about them is this is one of my arrows, but the vanes on them, that one's probably still good. But
Okay.
if you're not super careful, I mean, you can't set them on a table and let them flatten out, or they'll stay like that. You have to go back in and kind of mush them around to get them to go. To
Really?
yeah,
And it's funny because all right, so my arrow tube, like most of them holds only 6 arrows. And the
yeah,
other day I stuffed the whole dozen in there. And then I was just like, when I got home, I really got pissed off at myself because I was looking at it and I felt like I was like, you know what? I'm destroying the fletching here. I'm making them bend the wrong way. You know what I'm saying? And I
yeah,
literally sat there for a couple minutes, like kind of like trying to straighten them out with my fingers and such. But
yeah. So these are max hunters, and most people, if you're kind of in the knock on nation kind of guys, they know about them because this is one that Dudley puts out a lot. But there's a good shot of the profile. Uh, they do a really good job as far as being able to you know, like be sitting like this for a while, and then they come back to their shape. They do a much better
those
job.
are max hunters.
Yeah, max
All
hunters,
right.
and they
I've
perform.
I've I've noticed those a lot on your builds.
Yeah, I like them. They're honestly they're kind of a pain to get to adhere, but you have to use
Hmm.
their primer. You know, you have to use the AE primer pin. That's the
Hmm.
wrong one. So you have to use that primer pin with them, and you have to when you do it. I mean, you have to like you don't just you know go over it once and that's it. You have to like scrub with it to kind of get it. You don't have to push with it, but you do have to go over it. Make sure you get him extremely well, and then let them dry just for a second. Put the glue on, and then they'll hold fine. Uh, Something else that I like about the Blazers, you don't have to do that with them.
Hmm.
And another trick with them is all you have to do is put the glue on. Excuse me. Put the glue on. Let the glue sit for just a second. Give it a minute, and whatever's they used on their veins will actually mix with that glue, and they bond a lot better. So kind of give them a second, and then stick them on there with the Blazers.
Now, the guys at FOB Archery, I don't know if you're familiar with them. I would definitely say, hey, check them out on Instagram at FOB Archery. They've got
Yeah,
a new way, or a new tool, basically that replaces the fletching.
yeah,
Um, Are you familiar with their product at all?
Yeah, I've seen it on Instagram.
All right. Would you ever consider trying to do an arrow build with that? Like maybe testing something out? Because from what I understand, the way the product works, it flies just as good as if the traditional fletching on an arrow, but they pop off. So, and
Right.
it requires a drop away rest, but that they fly just as well. Is that something you'd maybe want to test out? I mean, because you being, the engineer that you are, I'm sure you try things like, a multitude of ways. I wouldn't mind trying to see if that's something that works. If I wanted to build arrows and be able to tell you like, hey, this is what I'm shooting, this is what I'd like to be able to shoot with. Don't put any traditional fletching on my arrow because I'm going to be using FOBs.
Sure. Yeah, they said it's 12 years old actually, developed back in 207.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was just a comment they put on.
Oh, yeah. All right.
Yeah,
I see it.
I
I see
would
it.
shoot them. I think I'd be curious to see what they do in a crosswind. Nothing against them at all. I haven't shot them,
Mhm.
so I don't know exactly, but I've seen them. My concern would be a crosswind and then people
All
that
right.
shoot whisker biscuits. So I'd like to shoot them. I mean, just to see what they do.
Got it. Got it. All right. So we've got a little under 5 minutes left before Instagram decides to give us the boot.
Yeah.
So I just want to say thank you, man. Thank you for being available tonight and coming on. I really appreciate it. I learned a lot. A lot of things that I heard, like I said, on the podcast with Guy, now makes so much more sense to me. So thank you for that. And while you're here, please tell people where they can find you.
Yeah, so they can find me at dc8customarrows.com.
Okay.
Make sure you throw the custom arrows in there. Don't forget the custom arrows part. There is a DCA out there. They actually make arrows. I tune arrows. And I have no affiliation with them. It was
All
just
right.
a interesting name. So DCA Custom Arrows, excuse me, .com, or out at DCA Custom Arrows on Instagram, and that's where you can see a lot more of my raps and things like that. But
Yes,
my
dude.
website has more of the math.
All right. Well, to everyone watching right now, everyone following or who's watching later, or on YouTube when this is on, definitely check out Kyle's Instagram page. Your pictures look like works of art, my brother. Trust me. Like, I remember I had asked you, I DM'd you asking you if you had a professional photographer taking pictures because the way you stage them, the color, the lighting is awesome. Because
Yeah.
like I said, like the minute I heard you on the Western Contours podcast, I immediately followed you on Instagram and I was like, yo, these arrows are dope. You know what I'm saying?
Thanks, man.
So you have some great content. And again, I thank you for coming on, man. I truly appreciate it, bro.
Yeah, no problem. I really appreciate it. I'm glad, I know you kind of just started up, and I'm really glad you had me on. Get in before everybody wants in, and then, we need more people out here spreading the good word and kind of getting the word out to everybody and helping them break it down. And it's good that you're just getting into it because you can ask a lot of good questions
Thank you.
and help people get into it. And that's what we need are more people in it. So big thanks to you and thanks to everybody. I've seen a lot of names that I know that are customers of mine. I really appreciate it. It's fun to work with you guys, and it's truly an honor to be able to be trusted with making something that you're super passionate about. I tell people that it's like Christmas, every time they get a set of arrows in, and we need more Christmas. So yeah,
Yeah.
contact me. I seriously apologize if I don't get back to you from the website quick because it's what's up, Breck? Um, it's really hard for me with the work and the family to get back to everybody, but I contact everybody. It takes some time sometimes. So, be patient, and I will get back to you and we'll do good things. Like Bob's rap is super cool. I got him and Aaron. We'll get him set up. He'll be good to
Uh,
go.
there you go. There you go.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks.
Well,
So you having me on, man.
no, again, thank you for coming on. So, ladies and
What's up,
gentlemen,
man?
there you have it. Kyle Davidson at DCA Custom Arrows. Check him out also at dcacustomarrows.com.
Nailed it.
I highly recommend you hit this brother up before He is in such high demand that you'll be waiting 2-3 months for a set of arrows. All right.
Oh man,
So
yeah.
thanks again, Kyle, man. You have a good night, brother. And I will
Thank
hit you up
you.
in your DMs.
Thank you, sir.
No
Take
doubt.
care. See you. What's up, Matt?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Kyle Davidson of at DCA Custom Arrows. All right. Really want to thank him again for coming on tonight. I learned a lot about my FMJs here, learning about the spine, the inserts, broadheads, field points, everything, the whole nine. All right. So thank you guys for watching.